Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Masters Series, where we talk with our Pinnacle Award winners about how they made it. You know, what did they do to have such a successful business? And what did they do to win the honor of becoming a Pinnacle Award winner? You know, we pick the best and brightest in African-American owned businesses every year in October. This year, it's going to be Saturday, October 23rd. It will be a virtual event. So we look forward to seeing you on TV. It will be on Channel 55, the sister station for KHOU, and also on YouTube. So you can join us on either platform to see who this year's Pinnacle Award winners are. But before that, we'll talk with Miss Argentina James, who is the head woman, head person, CEO, president, all of those different things for HillDay Public Relations. So welcome, Argentina.
Thank you for having me, Carol. I'm excited. HillDay is excited to have received the illustrious award from the Greater Houston Chamber. I used to sit in the audience and watch everyone else receive the award, and I said, one day I'm going to receive it, and I did, and I thank you and the Chamber for the honor.
Well, we were happy that you accepted the honor as well. So again, we want to highlight the best and brightest, and if you haven't put your application in and you want to be a part of the class with Argentina, feel free to visit our website at www.ghbcc.com/pinnacle and apply for this year's award. So we're going to get into how Argentina arrived at the pinnacle of success in her business. So we'll start off with a few questions, Argentina. So,
all right,
what made you want to become a PR professional?
Well, actually, when I started in college at Texas Southern University, the Texas Southern University.
The Texas Southern.
Absolutely. I actually went to school for pre-politics. I thought I wanted to be in politics or pre-law. And I thought that, and I took my first class in communications under the late Dr. Clarice Lowe. And I thought, oh my, I want to do this. And so it was a linguistics class. And then I started taking other communication courses, and I'm like, I can actually make a living from this. And so I first thought, let me be a journalist. I wanted to write for the paper, and I wanted to, do that kind of communication. And then when I got ready to graduate, I was looking at, okay, well, how much do journalists make? How much do news reporters make? And I was like, okay, I need to figure out something else to do. And so I then transitioned into corporate communications. And that's how I got into public relations. And it is fascinating because I get to use all aspects of communication.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting along our entrepreneurship journey as we move along, no matter what stage we find ourselves at, there might be some things, some kind of signs along the way that tell us, oh, well, maybe you might want to take your skill set and adjust it this way, because what I have seen is that there are people with journalism backgrounds that tend to gravitate toward PR.
Absolutely.
And so it sounds like that was the career choice that you made based on looking at how much journalists tend to make.
Yeah.
So that's not out of the ordinary.
Yeah, from what I saw, it took a long time to make the kind of salary that I wanted to make. And I was like, there has to be a faster way. So corporate communications was awesome for me. And when I got into that career, and I say that to students, learn all you can from every experience and be able to parlay that into your career. And so right. I say that all the time.
And it's interesting. It sounded like before you took the leap and opened your own business, that you worked for a corporation or two, an entity or two before you started. So why did you choose that route rather than going straight into owning your own PR business?
Well, it's really interesting because I always wanted to own my own company, and HillDay is a family name. My maiden name is Hill, and so my parents had a company that was called HillDay, because at that time they had a partner whose last name was Day, hence HillDay. And that company, I watched my parents as they were trying to grow a company, and how when you grow too quickly, it did not bear well for them, And so I learned from that, and I remembered that. But it also made my father really, really, it really took him hard. And I told my dad when I was 12 years old, and I said, Dad, I'm going to open up a business. I don't know what it's going to be called. It's going to be called HillDay. And when I open it up, it's going to be successful. And so I always wanted to have a company. I knew what the company's name was going to be, just didn't know the trade. And what worked for me was public relations. Now, what I will say is the key was preparation. I needed to make sure that I tested out my skills and I honed my skills on working with both public and private entities. So I've worked for, the city of Houston. I've worked for Texas Southern University. I've worked for the port. I've worked for banks, and all of them in that capacity, I was able to hone my skill and my trade, and it's been able to parlay into what I believe is a successful business.
So do you think, there are some entrepreneurs that just say to themselves, I'm just going to get out here and do it. I have this idea, there seems to be demand for it. I'm going to jump out here and just start my business. And there's a lot of heartache involved in that, in doing it that way. Just because there are lots of bumps and bruises, there's a huge learning curve, especially if you haven't had the benefit of having a family member or someone close to you have their own business. So it sounds like the path that you took, it gave you training and it gave you exposure to different people. So can you speak to how doing some groundwork ahead of time before you start your business, forming relationships, being able to, glean from other people that have been in your space before? Can you speak to how important that is to opening your own business?
Well, one of the things that when I looked at opening up my own business, I looked at some of the gaps in what my father always shared with me. Baby, if you go into business, you need to make sure that whatever you do, you can actually do that trade and not depend on someone else. Because if they don't come through, then your business is not successful. And so I always wanted to make sure that whatever I got into, I could actually do it. I didn't want to be just a manager of other people doing the work, and then I couldn't dig in and get involved. So that was key. But I also knew that I needed to figure out because public relations is a broad type. And so I needed to figure out where my niche in public relations was going to be. And I needed to figure out in the different industries. And what I figured out was highly regulated companies and work where you had to have public involvement. So for me, I ended up working in all of the areas where there were highly regulated projects, either construction or in banking. It was highly regulated. And so it always involved in engaging the community. And so for me, it worked for me. And I think that path may not work for everyone, but what I can say is how it's worked for me is I built a lot of relationships, as you alluded to. And I watched, and so when I got ready to start my company, I was able to tap in to those relationships, and people were willing to help because they understood that I was vested in the trade, which is public relations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, for anyone who's watching, I should say, that is thinking about leaving the public sector or the private sector to start your own business, don't think that it's a path that is not as admirable as someone who just decided to jump out there and start their business. I was one of those people that decided to jump out there and start my own business. And yes, I have had the example of entrepreneurship in my family, but it was still very difficult because I did not take the time as Argentina did in making sure I connected with more people that had wisdom and background in what I did. So I admire you, Argentina, for taking your time, studying your craft, and making those connections that helped you jump into your business. So
Absolutely. I mean, it's every day I say it's a learning. I learn something new every day. So, and I learn how to do it better every day. And one of our mottos at HillDay is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is the extra. And so, if every time we approach a project or an opportunity and we put the extra HillDay touch, then it's sort of like it's noticed. And so our compliant our clients, they oftentimes compliment us on the detail and the extra that they got from us. And it may not necessarily have cost them extra, but they noticed. And so the next time they came back, they, whatever we proposed as a fee, they were like, okay, you're worth it. So sometimes, and that is how we have grown our business. I mean, we now have, I think when we won the Pinnacle Award, we've now hired 5 more people. So we're now up to 17 people, and we're growing. But I am very mindful of my father's wisdom of saying, make sure that you have the foundation, make sure that you pay people well, make sure that you run the company like a company that you would want to work for, so that the people that you bring on, they feel good and they feel like you care about them, and you make sure they have insurance, and they you take care of their family and you treat them like their family. And so I really work hard to do that. As the company grows, it becomes more challenging, but I think we're managing it. And I think COVID, um, living through the pandemic, has helped us really hone that closeness and working with people, because to be able to grow your company during a pandemic and keep everybody gainfully employed and still deliver for your clients is a major feat. And salute to all the companies that did, and also those that tried, because it's hard. And when you're African American, or if we want to say Black, you sometimes get that Black tax. So sometimes you got to do the extra just to get in the room. And then once you get in the room, they realize, oh my goodness, you can really provide, and we're willing to pay you like we pay everyone else. I mean, we're not going to say because you're a small business, you don't produce big things. And so I'm blessed in that we have really, really talented teams. And the other thing that my father said, Carol, is when you are when you're striving and you're growing, put money back into the company and invest back into the company. And as you invest back into the company, you're investing in your employees, and you're investing in doing the job better, more creative, and businesses and your clients see that. So for me, it means that you can't go on a lot of vacations that you got to sometimes forego that. You see, it means that you can't do a lot of the things that you would do if you were just working for someone. Hey, I'm off at 5 or I'm off at 6, and if I get it done, that's fine. If I don't. And fortunately, working with the employees I've had, and we have a mixture. Some of them have been on their own and they understand, so they have that entrepreneurial spirit. And so that's some of the things that I would suggest to companies in terms of when you're selecting employees. How do you select employees that will give you their best, and make sure that they are, even when you're not looking, they're stepping up and doing all the extraordinary things that the client is expecting and should have.
yeah, you touched on a few things, because there are people that want to know how to get from 1 or 2 people to 17 people. You know, one of the things that you mentioned was that you put extra into what you do. So how do you think that putting that extra in has contributed to your growth?
Well, what the extra for me was, there were a lot of sleepless nights staying up, making sure that when I looked at something or before I submitted to a client, the final product, that I knew everything, and I really studied the client's needs. And that, if anything, is one of the things that I think clients really understand. If you really understand what they're needing from you and you're able to deliver, even on the spoken and unspoken um, uh, uh, ask in terms of the product, then that's when they notice the details. Oh, you knew that. How did you know that? Or, and so you say, wow. The other thing that gets you from the 1 to the 17, in my opinion, and it was something that it was very difficult for me to do. It, you can't do it all. You have to hire good people, and you have to have some trust that they are going to do and perform at the level. Now I say trust, but you got to verify. So trust and verify. But I think having, um, you know, if you think that you can do all the work and keep all the money, you gotta, in order for me to be able to get more business, I can't sit here and do all the business and then go drive business and do business development, which is a part of my role. But and then also making sure that the clients have access to working directly with some of your senior level or your key people, so that they understand that they can trust to work with your with one of your colleagues or my employees and get the same exact work without me having to be there all the time to shepherd and say it's okay. Now they know that I will probably review whatever the outcome is of whatever they're doing, but I don't have to be there, and they can trust that they're going to get the HillDay product or service because of the team and the staff that we've assembled to work with them. So that's one of the things that I say is really key: having good employees and being able to gradually transition from the person doing the work to the person overseeing the work, but always stay engaged that you need to sometimes do the work, because at some point, every once in a while, you have to test the skills and say, I still got it.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. And you said something key about putting money back into the business, because I have seen that work in my own business, and in my family's businesses. It sounds like you have to have a plan in mind. Like, you know that you want to grow your business, where you want to see it in 5 years, 3 years, or whatever the case may be. And you really do have to duplicate yourself, and even hire people that are smarter than you to really grow your business, and expand, or else you will either drive yourself crazy and go out of business. Well, there is no other alternative, because one person just can't do it all.
Correct.
That's just it. And so another thing that you mentioned was, you talked about hiring the best talent. So how have you been able to identify talented people that you believe, will fit with your business and help you further the mission of your business?
Well, one, being in the industry, I often run into and I see and um, I see product of potential employees, but the number one thing is making sure that you compensate them. So if you want to be the firm that lines up with the other Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 firms, and you're looking at the pay structure that they offer and some of the benefits that they offer, that's what I mean by investing back in the company. So if you have a 401k that you match, if you have health benefits that, the employees can afford, and also that if they got ill, that they felt like that they would be able to get the kind of coverage that they need. If you had programs and incentives for your employees to get bonuses and structured, then you're equal. And I've hired some employees from some of the top businesses in Houston. They're like, oh my goodness, you provide more than where I came from. I've hired some of the top folk in government and pay them as though they are top, and it is a sacrifice, but it pays off. And so if you are willing to invest in the employees and with the right talent, And I'm not going to say I haven't made a few mistakes along the way, but it's a part of learning and it's a part of growing, and also making sure that the employees invested in their trade as much. Because if you're going to hire people, you have to, one thing I always ask them is, what's the last training you've been in terms of your trade? And if they can't tell me within the last 6 months that they've had some kind of training experience, or they've produced this kind of product that was cutting edge, then it may be a person that's complacent, and they're not willing to learn, and they don't have that hunger to learn and to do and to be successful. So that is it's a skill, but it's also an intentional skill that you have to want to have, and you have to be able to have the hard conversations and be transparent with employees. One of the things that we do, if we don't get a project, if we go after a project and we don't get it, I let everybody know, well, we didn't get it, we'll get it the next time. What did we learn from it? And we do our little analysis. But when we win, we turn on the music and we all celebrate. It is like a big, they're like, okay, what did we win today? And so I think celebration is key, and making people feel good about their contribution. And we celebrate that way with our successes, and we learn from the things that we haven't been so successful at.
Yeah, I think recognizing employees and letting them know, from what I've seen, that their contributions matter is important. And that's something that I know I've done in business. And I know that, when I was employed, I was treated in that way. And it does really make a difference. How did you manage COVID? There have been a lot of businesses that didn't make it. We've heard statistics about Black-owned businesses, and how many we lost in the first quarter of 2020 last year. So what do you think you did to get yourself in a position where you could stay open and, just continue doing what you do?
Well, first, it's interesting that you asked that question, because I'll say it was very, very scary. I'll never forget when it was March 18th, because it was the day after my birthday, that the city shut down. And I was planning for growth because I had just signed a lease to expand my company, because I was preparing for a contract that we had won. And I was like, okay, we need more space. And I got this contract, and I signed the lease and made the deposit in January. And then February is coming around, and they were ready to, start. And we were literally figuring out, how can we, move around in the office and still work while the construction and was going on. And I turned to my husband and I said, oh my gosh, this is going to be bad. I just signed the lease and we all are gonna, what does this mean? But I also looked at the opportunity, because what we did as a PR firm, and then the expansion of HillDay Industries, which is construction support services, the way that we were able to deliver the construction support services, which was, if you think about it, it never stopped. Construction never stopped during the pandemic. In fact, it sped up. And being able to apply some really best practices and pivot and show our clients how they can virtually do their business and do it for them was the key to our success. And actually we grew during COVID. And so what I will say to you is, and then also it was a redoubling down for our employees, because everybody was worried about, oh, we're gonna be laid off, or, I had just, what I decided, I was gonna do a big celebration for my birthday, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Because I saw this coming, and I said, we're going to go invest in all brand new laptops and infrastructure. We went, bought that for all of our employees. So if you had one and they needed it, was all brand new. And we were prepared to work remotely. And so when they went home and they worked remotely, and they were happy to get up every morning to log in to have a job, because at that time, everybody was talking about layoffs and how are we going to, survive through this. And every day we had a 5-minute check-in to make sure that everybody was, and they were excited because they felt like they were contributing. And so we made video presentations for a large, for large clients, that they were like, well, how are you going to do it? We got this. And we did it. And we were so proud. And so while the pandemic was an unfortunate, and that's at the most generous way to say it, an unfortunate thing for our community and our businesses and our world, it also gave us all an opportunity to reset and reprioritize and figure out how can we make, and Black folks, we've always had to figure out how to make something out of nothing. So, hey, we would make soup out of a bone, some, ham hocks and rice, that's good. We got a meal. So we knew how to do that. And I think it paid off. And also, you had the pandemic, and then you had the Black Lives Matter, and then, companies wanting to, celebrate in the fact that they are working with Black-owned businesses. For me, it just elevated the importance that they had me on the team, because I was already on the team, and they were able to say, we already understand how Black Lives Matter, because Argentina tells us every day how Black Lives Matter. So yeah, the pandemic was an opportunity, or we viewed it as an opportunity. I'll put it like that. We viewed it as an opportunity, and we could have sat there and folded our heads and said, how can we do this? But the team got together, and everybody threw in ideas of how we can be successful. And we prevailed, and we persevered, and we thank God.
It seems like a common thread through all of our Pinnacle Award winners that we've interviewed so far has been outlook, the way they have decided to look at things, and then the actions that they've taken thereafter, and several of you are successful in spaces that have seemingly been saturated, so with so many, it seems like there are lots of people jumping into PR. And I want to get your thoughts about doing well in a market that seems like it's saturated, especially when you have social media influencers. How has that affected your business? At the same time, how have you managed to still rise to the top of the crop, to be the cream of the crop in an industry where people are trying to jump in all the time and, be their own influencers?
Well, here's what I say. There is enough work out there for everyone. But also going back to what my dad said, know your trade and know how to do your trade better than anybody else. So for me, understanding the area in public relations, because it is a broad area, and understanding the space that was not being met. And the space for me was large public infrastructure projects. There was not enough people doing that in that space. And because I worked for those type entities, I understood them. And I was me on the other side, I was my client when I was in those different careers. So I understood what I needed. I understood exactly what I needed. And so when I'm working with my client, I know what they need. And so being able to bring that all together in a specialized space. I don't do celebrity stuff. I'm not a publicist. I'm a public relations strategist. I don't I can put events on because events are part of the strategy as a tactic as a result of this strategy. But I can do media buys and ad buys. I don't do the political stuff. I mean, I involve in politics, but I don't get into PR for, elected officials. I don't get on campaigns. I don't do that. That's a specialty. So figuring out your specialty, and there's enough work out there for everyone. And I always believe one of the things that I learned in this space, I said, there's not enough of us out there for them to even choose from, and I can't do it all. So I actually called one of the colleagues in the industry. I said, hey, let me show you how to get certified doing this. And we literally sat there on Zoom and I showed them how to get on. And because at the end of the day, there's enough. And when you're the only person in the room that looks like you, you're the only person in the room looks like you. And when things are great, but when things are not, and you're the only person in the room, that's all you got. So I believe in bringing other people into the room and having success, because at the end of the day, when a rising tide lifts all boats. And so if everybody's getting some of it, who am I to block your blessing? Let's be blessed together. Let's pull. I'm always trying to find, oh, do you do this? Oh, okay, let me figure out, oh, I know this and this company needs this. And so for me, it's a natural thing in understanding what your niche is. And what I also say is, for those people who are starting business, whether it's public relations or not, whatever you provide, make sure that it is a central component to the business. So what I mean by that is, if you are, if whatever you're doing for the company, if your services were not there, the project or the service could not be either provided or built. So if you just make wrenches and that wrench is needed to make that product, then you are an essential part to that business. And so that's one of the things I learned from my father and a couple of mentors. Make sure that what you're doing is essential to the business, and it is not something when it's budget time to cut. Oh, I don't need a publicist. Why? We don't. I mean, I don't need a party planner, because and party planning is great. That's therapy for me. I like planning parties. It's therapy for me, or planning events. But being an essential part of the business, that they have to have it. Otherwise, the business or the product will not be successful.
Mhm. Yep. And that way you create your own demand.
Correct. And being ready to answer the phone 24 hours because you're providing an essential role. So that's the other thing I have to tell that I say. When you're a small business, you can't afford to say, I only work from 9 to 5. When
That's true.
one of the things that I try to make sure that my clients know, that my phone works 24 hours, because I've always been in the business and an industry where you had to be available 24 hours. So they always felt comfortable calling me with an issue or an urgent matter at 9 o'clock at night or 10. I mean, you're in public relations. So for me, being able to hire the type of employees and understand you pay them well, and then if you're 9 to 5, then this not going to work for us, because our employees are counting on us. And so having that kind of work ethic is essential to being successful, and while you're on a growth pattern.
Yeah. And, you have made so many great points during our time. I can't believe that we're almost done here. I mean, we could continue talking forever, getting all these nuggets from you, Argentina. But before we let you go, I must ask, where do you see yourself going in the future? Where are you taking HillDay?
Well, as we continue to grow, I shared with you as a part of our business strategy, we had HillDay Public Relations, and then we have HillDay Industries. And as both of those platforms are growing, they will ultimately be separate entities. And I'm building a legacy. I have 2 children, and my husband, between the 2 of us, we have 4 children, and we want to build something that if our children want to come behind and have a role in this business and run this business, they will have a place to do that. I think it's essential to create legacies because we work too hard just to make it, I did it this day, and, you know, leaving your mark, and not just leaving your mark in how much money you've made, leaving your mark in how many people you have impacted in a positive way, how many people you have helped, how many people you have brought along the way, and how many people have helped you. Remembering that. And I've always had my blessings from the least expected. And so I will leave with being able to give back to the and support the community in ways that is gonna not directly benefit your company. You're not doing it for the PR, you're doing it for the need, and you're doing it for the purpose. And I think being able to do that, grow the business, and continue to give back to the community in a profound way, and making sure that I leave a legacy of great work and people who can carry it on. Because if you have a great foundation, it will withstand. And that's what I want to do. I'm building this foundation so that the legacy can live on. And my father, who is serving as my North Star, he's looking down and he's probably saying, well done, daughter, well done. So that's what I want.
It sounds so beautiful to know that your dad is looking down on you and that you're carrying forth with what you said you were going to do. I know he's very, very proud. So, congratulations on all of your success.
Thank you.
Thank you for even thinking about creating generational wealth. Here at the Chamber, we want to assist our members in creating generational wealth. It's not just for family, but it's for our entire community. So thank you for being with us today. And before we go, we must say, please watch our social media, all of our platforms for what's coming up next for the Chamber. We have the Men in Business Conference coming up this August. We moved it, so it'll be coming up on August 19th. Our Procurement Forum, August 20th. We have so many things going on. We want you to join us. If you're not a member, join today, ghbcc.com/membership. Your membership allows us to bring you these types of programs. So we need your support. So again, the Pinnacle Awards, October 23rd, it'll be a virtual event. Make sure you tune in. We want to thank Argentina James of HillDay Public Relations, our 2020 Pinnacle Award winner, for joining us today and giving us such wonderful, wonderful information. So please stay tuned for the next Masters event, which will happen next month. Thank you for joining us, and please continue your support of the Greater Houston Black Chamber. Until next time, I'm Carol Guest. I serve as your interim president. Take care.